Prince Harry panic, Duke opens up on his fears for Archie's future in an emotional letter. Prince Harry opened up on his fears for Archie Harrison's future in a comment piece he penned to cast a light on social media platforms and their impact on everyday's life. Prince Harry revealed which battle he and Meghan Markle are focusing on at the moment in a lengthy op-ed published on website Fast Company. The Duke of Sussex said there are online platforms that have contributed to, stoked, and created the conditions for a crisis of hate, a crisis of health, and a crisis of truth. Urging business leaders and companies to think before investing their money on similar platforms without demanding a change, Harry opened up on his fears for the future if nothing is done to prevent the downfall he has noticed. In particular, the Duke appears to be thinking about how the future generations are going to interact with social media and digital news and the even greater impact they will have on their lives compared to his. Referring to his one-year-old son Archie, Prince Harry said, "From conversations with experts in this space, we believe we have to remodel the architecture of our online community in a way defined more by compassion than hate, by truth instead of misinformation, by equity and inclusiveness instead of injustice and fearmongering, by free, rather than weaponized, speech." This remodeling must include industry leaders from all areas drawing a line in the sand against unacceptable online practices as well as being active participants in the process of establishing new standards for our online world. Companies that purchase online ads must also recognize that our digital world has an impact on the physical world, on our collective health, on our democracies, on the ways we think and interact with each other, on how we process and trust information. Because, if we are susceptible to the coercive forces in digital spaces, then we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean for our children? As a father, this is especially concerning to me. In his op-ed, Prince Harry warned ongoing studies on the effects online media are having on people, especially youngsters, are still at an early stage given most of these platforms were born in the late 2000s. But as many are perceiving the dangers within social media's current form, especially for young people, the Duke believes it's necessary to act as soon as possible. Comparing current studies on these new digital interactions with the ones on leads in the 1970s, the Duke said, in the 1970s, there was a groundbreaking study on the societal effects of lead exposure in kids. In his op-ed, Prince Harry warned ongoing studies on the effects online media are having on people, especially youngsters, are still at an early stage given most of these platforms were born in the late 2000s. But as many are perceiving the dangers within social media's current form, especially for young people, the Duke believes it's necessary to act as soon as possible. Comparing current studies on these new digital interactions with the ones on leads in the 1970s, the Duke said, in the 1970s, there was a groundbreaking study on the societal effects of lead exposure in kids. Researchers I've spoken with are studying how social media affects people, particularly young people, and I believe the book of data that we will look back on one day will be incredibly troubling. Prince Harry revealed he and Meghan have worked behind the scene for months and studied the issues linked to online platforms, and their conversations with experts have brought them to one worrying conclusion. He said, "We all need a better online experience. We've spoken with leaders across the racial justice movement, experts in humane tech, and advocates of mental health. And the collective opinion is abundantly clear, we do not have the luxury of time. We need meaningful digital reform, and while the role of policymakers and regulators is important, we can't just wait for them to take the next steps. This is a moment for companies around the world, companies with business and advertising models directly tied to digital platforms, to consider how they can bring about reform to ensure the betterment of all."